New India Co-operative Bank is in a problem. My question to you, is it a symptom of a larger malaise in a corporate sector, cooperative banking sector?
You see, we have seen the debacle of cooperative banking sector hovering up in the last 10 years multiple times. Even recently, we've had one there, and then it was merged and taken over by another bank. If you really look at the banking sector in the last 40, 50 years, the Reserve Bank of India has done an exceptional job in terms of taking care of depositors and no bank actually failing out. They have either been merged or taken over, and times have been given. Even in the past, moratoriums have been placed on small and large banks, and we have seen that depositors have not lost. Even during the time when the depository insurance was only 1 lakh rupees per account, or a CIF, which is there, or not a joint account, every account one can have 5 lakhs. So for small depositors, it is not such a big concern. Certainly, there'll be a restriction because even depository insurance organization takes about 80 to 90 days in terms of processing, where they will verify how much money you have and all. So if anyone who has less than 5 lakhs in their accounts, for them, it is not a problem. They can go to the depository insurance and get money securely out. But for the 6 months for rest of them, it will be a problem because for the 6 months, unless the RBI reviews its decision and takes an early call of removing some of these restrictions or allowing some kind of cash withdrawals to take place, as they've done in the past also. If you remember, recently a moratorium was there where they had allowed about 10,000 rupees to be drawn out every day on a daily basis. So that they can review. But as of today, as the situation stands, this will completely be sealed off except for contents kept in the locker. Rest, everything is sealed off for the bank till further directions are received in terms of supervision.
Okay. I'm also joined by Subhamoy Bhattacharya, Consulting Editor, Business Standard. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. My question to you is do we have a problem in the Indian cooperative banking sector? Do you think it survives because of political nexus, powerful politicians?
It only survives because of political nexus. So basically what happens is cooperative banks and many educational institutions, they are very good conduits for politicians. Which is the reason why urban cooperative banks particularly are extremely attractive in the major commercial centers. And I heard the other panelists saying, and they're correct, this is something that is essentially a very, very major problem. A cooperative bank, the way they are, not the agricultural cooperative societies, but these cooperative banks, the urban cooperative banks, should not be on the horizon for people. For people, these should not be allowed to be taking deposits. They should basically be acting as NBFCs. The problem is that they all have the lure of taking on some amount of deposits from the people. Most of the deposits, however, come from very well what they call politically connected persons. So it's not that as if there's a lot of public that's there, but the politically connected persons who are there use this as a cover for making the bank work and putting pressure on RBI and the government to not to disturb the apple cart. So it's basically something which we shouldn't be having. It's repeated problems that keeps on coming up. Yes, Karthik.
But then what is the solution to it? What sort of a reform is required?
There have been several committees that have gone into it. Dr. Chan Singh would know. And essentially, these committees have recommended that the urban cooperative banks should not, first of all, should not exist. Secondly, if they at all exist, they should only be under the rubric of the RBI. Right now, they have dual control. State governments and the RBI, which makes it a hell's mixture. This is not something that should be there. And this is why the urban cooperative banks create problems whenever there's a downturn in the market. Right now, there's a downturn in the market, and you can be sure that whenever there's a downturn in the market, one or the other urban cooperative bank gets into a problem because they are the ones for easy money, and invariably they get into problems whenever the market's liquidity turns tight. Yes.
I think that's a very interesting point. Dr. Chan Singh, do you agree with Subhamoy? I think that's a very powerful point he made.
This is very true. The way the commercial banks, which are very large in size, of course, comparatively, and have a national presence, unlike most of the urban cooperative banks, which have limited presence in 1 or 2 states and are generally restricted to urban centers. The regulatory and supervisory mechanism is generally compromised. And it is generally compromised because of the political nexus, which he was just mentioning, and rightly so. Now, that also means that the governance of the cooperative bank is highly compromised. And it's not up to the standard or expectation. But the problem is that the cooperative banks have been in existence for a reasonably long time. Urban cooperative banks have also played a very, very important role. So you just can't wish them away. And now we have the Ministry of Cooperatives in the center. And part of their jurisdiction would also cover, and part of their recommendations would also cover the cooperative banks and cooperative movement in the country. So therefore, the Reserve Bank's diction to that extent has always gets compromised and always has to be very careful when it is extended to the cooperative banks. Nevertheless, I would say, given that the regulatory mechanism has been put in place, especially the urban cooperative banks, never has there been an instance where the customers, the depositors, have had to suffer on a long-term basis. The short hiccups are there, as Professor Aman was mentioning, and I have also mentioned it, that in a few days, I'm very sure the way going by the past trend, small limited amounts would be permitted to be withdrawn from the bank. So therefore, the difficulties, the challenges in paying the school fees or little amounts that need to be withdrawn by housewives would be taken care of. And as far as the long-term concern, there is the insurance cover provided up to deposit of 5 lakhs. Now, if you look at the deposit base of the cooperative banks, about 95 to 98% of the deposits fall within the insured range.